that's what I think we as mothers need to do for our daughters.
Mm.
Our job is not to create little carbon copies of ourselves. It's to help them to identify what their divine gifts are and teach them to own it and to love it and to embrace it and magnify it and multiply it and not let people put limits on them.
Because you need to be you, right? I mean, and
Yes.
we just unfortunately we do live in a society that likes to tell us who we should be, where we should be, when we should be, those kinds of things, and that isn't how it's meant to be.
Welcome to Her Unshakeable Confidence with dynamic mother-daughter duo Simone and Olivia Knego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into Her Unshakeable Confidence and join this special journey of connection and growth. It's like catching up with old friends who inspire you to be bravely and uniquely you.
Welcome to this week's episode of Her Unshakeable Confidence. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego.
And today we have Traci Peterson with us. Traci is a board-certified family nurse practitioner, international speaker, business owner, and podcast host. She loves anything health and fitness related. She's obsessed with excellence and divine potential. Traci helps high-performing women with daughters overcome self-criticism through looking inward and upward for their validation. She has 3 high-energy kids, a mother-daughter movement called Woman Lessons, and she doesn't believe in the word busy. Yay!
I know. I'm happy to be here.
So happy to have you here. I just because that was like the last part of the intro, the word busy, actually, I don't think I believe in it either because, I mean, I feel busy a lot with 6 kids and everything I'm trying to do, but I actually think I'm more motivated when I'm busy.
Me too.
And I don't know if you feel, okay, yeah, because I feel like if I have nothing to do, which really never happens, but if I had nothing to do, I would be like, oh, well, I don't have to do anything, so I can just lay around and do nothing.
Yeah.
But when I have 20 things to do, I'm like, okay, I have my list. I'm going to get it all done.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the same way, Simone. And I think that's sort of a characteristic of a high performing woman. But I think I've also learned through my life that I was using busy as like the be all end all excuse of being scattered or not having time for people. Or, I remember because I'm a nurse practitioner. So I remember when I was in graduate school, my, friends or my family would be like, oh, you're so busy. Like, I know you're so busy. Like when they called me and I was like, oh no, I don't really like the way that feels because we make time for things that are a priority to us. And so I made that switch a few years ago and I literally don't use the word busy. I removed it from my vocabulary because I feel like when I say I'm busy all the time, it's almost like I'm acting as a victim and I'm relinquishing control over my life. Whereas if I say I live a full life and I live it full out, that means I'm choosing it and I'm not being acted upon. I'm choosing to have a full calendar. I'm choosing to have a full life. And that's when I thrive. Personally, it sounds like you thrive when you have a full calendar and you're anxiously engaged in good things. And so yeah, I've literally deleted it from my vocabulary.
I love that because as soon as you said that, I thought of my mom, and my mom will call and say, I know you're so busy. Could you help me with this? And my answer is always like, of course I can help you. Like you're a priority, but it is like this. It's like she feels guilty to call me because I'm so busy. And it is a really interesting thing. But we do talk about being busy too much. And you're right. It is more like we're living life to the fullest.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the best things, because I fill my calendar up, but one of the best pieces of advice that I got, because I love my calendar so much and I really do keep it full, but also I got the guidance to calendar in white space. Like leave white space in your calendar for God or other people to come in and fill it so you can go and fill a need in their life when they call, right? So being overly scheduled doesn't allow you that flexibility to go to someone's need, or when you feel an impression to go and help someone or do something, and maybe you don't know why, I also want to fill my calendar and my life up with those moments. And it's something that I'm still practicing every day, is just to leave white space in your calendar for God to come in and fill it.
It's a very interesting thought. And I think that it is true because I have white space, but then I fill it with something else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like just block it off and say, okay, let's wait for something else to happen. I really do say, oh yeah, I have that available. Like I was actually supposed to have lunch with somebody today and we talked about it and I didn't put it in my calendar and I put something else in my calendar. Right.
Yep.
So then
Yep.
gone, sorry. And then I'm like, maybe we can meet in January. Right. It's just,
I know. Isn't that everybody right now? It's like, let's wait till January.
yeah. So let's talk about woman lessons and what inspired you to start this. It's your daughter Quinn, correct?
Correct. Yes. Oh, I love my daughter Quinn. And first of all, I just have to give it back to you guys. It warms my heart, like being sort of the founder and creative of mother-daughter movement, like coming on and being on this podcast and just seeing this dynamic mother-daughter duo, it literally warms my heart.
That's
you.
so sweet. Thank you.
Truly, I mean that. And, I've toyed with the idea of, having Quinn on my podcast and different things. And I'm sure eventually we'll get there. We'll get there one day. So you guys are inspiring me today.
Thank you.
But yes, so about 2 years ago, my daughter Quinn was 9 at the time. And it was just typical after school activities. She was sitting at our counter. The TV was on in the background. I was standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes. And I do this weird thing when I do the dish. I don't do the dishes very often. So it's kind of funny that this whole story started with me doing the dishes. Because my husband's like, you tell this story all the time now, and you never do dishes, Tracy. And
That's
I
so
truly
funny.
don't. My husband does. My husband does like all
My
the dishes.
husband does too. He loves doing the
Yeah.
dishes because I think I do them wrong. Or he thinks I do them wrong. So you know what? Great. Do the dishes.
My husband is the same. My husband's the same way. I'm like, all right, knock yourself out. So
Exactly.
the one day that I was doing dishes in the last 10 years, I was standing there doing the dishes, and I remember reaching down and grabbing a plate. And in my head, I say plate, and then I reached for a cup and a spoon, and I put the spoon away. And then I said fork. And I remember a fork being stuck like deep in the dishwasher, like it always does. I don't know how that fork always gets in there. But I grab this fork and I stand up and I'm holding this fork in my hand. And my daughter Quinn, so sweetly at 9 years old, said to me, Mom, can we do woman lessons? And I was like, yeah, we could do women
That
lessons.
is
Like,
so adorable.
isn't that sweet? I was like, yeah, of course. What does that mean to you? Like, we can do them. I don't know what that means, but what does that mean? And she said, well, and so thoughtfully, she said, I want to learn how to do my makeup. I want to learn how to put together an outfit, and I want to learn how to cook. And I was like, oh, that is so sweet. We can learn those things. And then the high performing, like entrepreneur, nurse practitioner, like self-criticizing mom kind of went down the spiral. And I was like, as sweet as that is, it's also so sad. Like, is that all that she thinks that it means to be a woman, is what we look like and what we do? And so with this fork in my hand, standing there, I literally was at this fork in the road where I could just have brushed off like, yeah, cool, we'll do women lessons. I'll teach you how to do your makeup and find an outfit. Or I could take this other fork. And I chose to take the other fork to get a little bit introspective and say, what does it mean to be a woman? And not just a woman, but like a truly confident woman. And what are those lessons that I maybe had to learn the hard way that I want to teach her earlier and sooner, and really make sure that she knows where to look for her validation? Because for so long, I looked to everything outside of me, to my external validation, finding it through everyone else and everything else and every accolade and every whatever. And so that's really where, these 7 woman lessons were created. And now we do retreats with mothers, high performing mothers and their daughters between the ages of 9 and 12. And we go through these seven woman lessons, and they're so powerful. And that's really the beginning of all of it.
Can you give us the
Of course.
7 lessons?
Yes.
Because I mean, if we're talking makeup and
Yes.
clothes, but I want to know the seven.
I know. Yes. So it's not makeup and clothes. However, we talk about investing in your vessel. Like there's nothing wrong with those things. It's
Right.
just we're so much more than that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, yeah, the 7 woman lessons to help women and their daughters to look inward and upward for validation is number one, remember who you are and whose you are. Number two, gratitude grounds. Number three, own your divine gift. 4, be self more, not self less.
Mm.
5, you are more than your body. 6, community counts. And number 7 is live in your potential.
I love that. I think they're all such powerful pieces. And, this for Liv and I, this has been such a fun experience having this podcast together
Mm-hmm.
and kind of growing. And I see with her at 21, 22 tomorrow. So by the time the episode comes
Ah,
out, you'll be 22.
happy
Um,
birthday.
Thank you.
so really seeing the impact our conversations and our conversations with guests have had on her, which, boy, wouldn't that have been great if I could have done that younger, right? And
Mm,
even younger than that. So
hmm
I just love that it is in that adolescent stage that you're having these conversations, because
Yeah,
at some point girls grow up and think, wait, no, this is all I am supposed to do is worry about how I look and, learn how to cook. And that's not a high performing woman. I mean, some people, absolutely, you can do whatever you want to do, but we are more than that.
yes,
So I love that.
yes, yes, we are so much more than that. And I love that you bring that up, like hitting them sort of pre-adolescence. And what was fascinating about this is this window of 9 to 12-year-olds. I call it like, it's like this ooey gooey stage where they still love their mom. Like we still have
Mm-hmm.
influence in their life, but they're also in this like pre-puberty state where they really are before their bodies and their hormones kind of start going out of control in their psychosocial development. They are vacillating between their identity and being confused about their identity.
Mm.
Like, who am I? Like, who do I identify as? Like, am I an artist? Am I an athlete? Am I like my mom? Am I different than my mom? Like, what makes me unique and special? And and I think well-intentioned mothers, we're all well-intentioned. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to do our best, right? With the
Right.
resources that we have. But well-intentioned mothers inadvertently project our insecurities onto our daughters. So if we're insecure about who we are and even our identity, then we're going to project some of those insecurities onto them. And so I really wanted to create a movement, a multi-generational movement where mothers and daughters can personally develop together. Because I could take the girls and go to a retreat or a camp or something, and they learn all these wonderful things. And then if they go back into a home where it's not being modeled, then it's kind of for naught,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially as a high performing mom, oftentimes we're off doing our own thing. We're off, we're building our dreams and we're going to conferences and we're doing these things. But I don't know of a conference where mothers and daughters get to come together and build belief in themselves, build build that relationship with each other, while they're building a connection and a relationship with their maker. So that's really what I wanted to create. And that the big vision of this is, yes, we're starting with 9 to 12-year-olds, but eventually we'll do 13 to 15 and 16 to
Mm-hmm.
18 and then college age like Olivia, and that's the whole point, is this woman lessons is really by Quinn for Quinn, so I can develop it and we can develop it together. And I already have my list of topics and things and what I want to cover, when she reaches that 13 to 15-year-old, because it's starting now. She's 12. She's 12 now.
Mm.
So it's been about 2.5 years. So we're full speed ahead in hormones, and
Yeah.
it's exciting
Ha-
to say the least. I joke that one day I think I'm going to write a book. I'm like, God has to have a sense of humor, because he's having me go into perimenopause. So my
mm.
hormones are going wackadoo while she's coming in to puberty and her hormones. I'm like, what sort of vicious joke and cycle is that? Because that I gotta ask God his idea of that one day.
It's just to make us stronger.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And understanding, right? Like I have so much empathy now for her and just what she's going through. And I'll tell you a story. This was so interesting to me because she started having some, just these emotional ups and downs and outbursts and different things. And then I started experiencing some of those, like for me personally. But I remember her like, oh, these boys and this friend and these sort of situations. And I remember one day thinking, oh my gosh, like Quinn, get over it already. And I walked into my storage room. I kid you not. I walked into my storage room, which I never am in a lot, very similar to never doing dishes. But I walk into my storage room, and right at my eye level on a box is this blue journal with a sun with flames coming out, bright orange. And I'm like, I remember that journal. That was my journal. And it's just
Oh,
sitting on
wow.
top of a box. I'd never seen it. I swear to you, it was a God moment. And I walked in and I grabbed that journal and I opened it up. And I kid you not, it was my journal from when I was 11 and 12 years old.
Wow.
And every entry was, I love this boy. I have these friend issues. I love my parents so much. And on the next day, I hate my parents. They don't even listen to me. I want a different family. And then on the next page, my parents are amazing. They're the best people. So it's just showed me like Traci, have some
We forget,
compassion.
right?
Like, yes, we totally forget. Have some
Yeah.
compassion for your sweet little daughter who's going through some hormonal shifts exactly like you're going through hormonal shifts. And the things that she cares about so deeply now, you are the exact same way and you cared about those exact same things. So basically, throw her a bone and go easy on her, which I did, which I am doing
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. Liv, did you write stuff about me?
No, I never actually kept a journal consistently. I was always the kid that would like forget where I put it.
Well,
So
apparently I was the same way. I think I had
That's
like
pretty funny.
62 journals. I would like
yeah,
use a quarter of it and then I would lose interest.
yeah, it's
That's
like
my
me too.
ADHD.
Sounds about right. So I love that. I love the work that you're doing, but I want to really talk about confidence and something we talk about, obviously, her unshakable confidence. We talk about confidence all the time
Yeah.
here, but with the idea of confidence, there are misconceptions of
Hmm.
being too confident, which makes you bossy. Like there's always a term for everything, right? So you
Hmm.
can't just be you. You have
Yeah.
to be, if you're confident, then maybe you're bossy or you're disrespectful or you're the B word, whatever. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many things that come along with that, which I disagree with all of them, right? I think,
Yeah.
again, when you're confident, you're comfortable in your skin, you're
Hmm.
able to do the things that you want to do and not worry about what anybody else is thinking. But
Hmm.
what do you see along this realm? And then Liv, I want to hear about, what you have to say about it too.
Yeah. I love this topic so much because I think almost every woman out there, and I have another business like internationally where I mentor and I coach women in business as well. And this is a theme. It is a common theme that I hear over and over and over again, that people have been told they're too much of something.
Mm.
And what I've learned, I mean, that was me. That honestly was me. And I can pinpoint it to the exact time because what I can tell you is I think when we look at another woman and what we see is like, oh, she's confident. What I can tell you is some of the most confident, put together, accomplished women are some of the most insecure
Mm.
because I was one of them. Like I know it. I absolutely know it. Like I have accolades and achievements and accomplishments a mile long, but a lot of that was because I didn't feel good enough. So I felt like I needed to earn
Mm.
my worth, right?
Hmm.
And I remember when I was 14 years old and I was running for student body president, and I was in seventh period, the last one of the day. They were announcing, the results at the very end of the day. And I remember that clock ticking. I didn't hear one word of what the teacher was saying, but that clock kept ticking, tick, 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 tick. And finally overhead, our principal comes in and says, we've got the announcements and the winners of the student class president vote. And, he announces the secretary and the vice president. And then he announces, the winner of student body president is Traci Osler. That was me. That was my maiden name. And I was like freaking out. I was so happy. Everybody was cheering and like high-fiving me, all the things. I walk out of the classroom, walking down the hall, and I come up to a group of friends of mine. And friends in quotations, right? And they didn't see me walking up behind them. And I remember overhearing them say, Traci thinks she's so cool and like that she's so popular and we didn't even vote for her anyway. She's going to think she's such a big deal now, blah, blah, blah. And I was gutted, like absolutely gutted. And I remember going home and approaching my mom and saying, Mom, why don't these girls like me? Like, why do they have a hard time with me? Like, why wouldn't my friends just be happy for me? And she said, well, and I think she was doing the best she could with the resources that she had. But she said, well, you're too loud, you're too confident, and it makes people feel uncomfortable. Ouch. And I remember, ouch, like stab, right in my stomach, like what? And it was so confusing to me in that moment because all throughout my 14 years leading up to that point, I was celebrated for these natural divine gifts of leadership that I had, right? But now I'm sitting here in this moment and I'm being told that I'm too loud, too confident, too bossy, and it makes people feel uncomfortable. So I was like, what's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me, and I probably need to turn down those natural gifts, those natural abilities, so that other people feel comfortable. Hence, when I started looking for my validation in other people. And that leads to nowhere except feeling unfulfilled because it's like you're aiming at a moving target, right? You're like, oh, this person wants this. Okay, I'll be that. Oh, wait, that's not good enough for you. Okay, you want this. Okay, target's over here. So it's like, it's a moving target constantly. And so going back to your point of women especially feeling or being told at some point in their life, I would honestly say probably 98% of women have been told that they're too much of something. And what I've learned is that whatever the world sees is different or difficult about you, God sees that different as divine. Like he made me loud, outspoken, confident, bossy for a reason. And it's my job to harness that gift, magnify that gift, multiply that gift, and then use that gift in the service of other people. Because it's what the world sees as difficult, God sees that different and difficult thing as divine. And so I learned to become liberated by relabeling some of the limits. So if people put a limitation on you, sometimes that's the lens through which we see our whole life and all of our experiences. And so instead of looking at that and accepting it, I just relabel it as a positive. So I reframe it. So an example would be, you're too confident, or I'm assertive and I have leadership skills. See how I'm turning it into a positive instead of like a negative connotation? You're too emotional. I'm sure many women out there listening, you've maybe been told you're too emotional, right? Or you just express your feelings and you're very empathetic. If you're too dramatic, actually you're just passionate and expressive. It can be such a positive thing. Maybe you're too needy, or you just really value connection and relationships. Those are priorities in your life, right? Maybe if you're too bossy, that just means you're a master delegator. Like you can delegate and you can move the needle and get crap done. And all of these things that people have labeled as difficult or different about you actually are your divine gifts. And you should own them, reframe them, make it a positive, and then use those to bless other people's lives. So I could talk about that. I could talk about that for days because that's seriously like, and that's what I think we as mothers need to do for our daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is not to create little carbon copies of ourselves. It's to help them to identify what their divine gifts are and teach them to own it and to love it and to embrace it and magnify it and multiply it and not let people put limits on them.
Because you need to be you, right? I mean, and
Yes.
we just
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately we do live in a society that likes to tell us who we should be, where we should be, when we should be, those kinds of things, and that isn't how it's meant to be. And
No.
and live like I think about law school, right?
Yeah.
And so thinking about being a woman in law school, I don't know how big what like the breakout of your classes in terms of men and women, but do you see things like that where, oh, she's too bossy or she's too confident or
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's really reflected into like the workforce as well. And I kind of think, especially within law, there's kind of an expectation at some point that the women will just stop working.
Yeah,
You'll have, we go to these networking events and it's only older men. There's no older women because of the expectation that society places on women.
yeah,
And like we're fighting it a bit, but it's also hard for me because you have no example out there of someone that truly just worked their whole career.
totally.
I
Totally.
mean there are examples of
Yeah,
them,
but
but
it's like very few compared to like what the force is dominated with.
Totally. And I can relate to that. I can relate to that on so many levels, Olivia, because in my nurse practitioner profession, it is more male dominated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a time when I would downplay my femininity.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wear makeup. I wouldn't do my hair. I wouldn't do like wear a nice outfit because people wouldn't take me seriously. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'd walk in the room, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Tracy. I'm the nurse practitioner. I'm your provider." And they're like, "Oh, when's the doctor coming in?" You're like,
mhm.
that is my role. I am your provider. That is what I'm doing, right?" But yeah, no, I see that. I see that all the time. And to your point, like if you don't have a very immediate mentor and somebody that you feel like you see yourself in them, that can be really hard because in another one of our businesses, I remember this is on my entrepreneurial journey. I remember coming in as a mom and stepping into this entrepreneurship role, and me saying, "Okay, I don't see any examples of high performing women with families who
Mm.
have the same values and morals that I have. So is it possible? Is it possible for me?"
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to someone and saying, "Do you know of anybody like that? Like, do you know of anybody like that in our company or in anything?" And he was like, "No, I don't."
Mm.
And I remember that day saying to myself, if I don't see it, I have to be it. If I don't see an example of what I want for my life, I have to be it. I have to become that. So I am now tasked with being a mom with multiple kids and being super successful in business and crushing it. Like I have to be that example for every other woman that comes after me. I have to be that pioneer. And if I
Mm-hmm.
don't do it, who is?
Yeah, and I guess within law, I guess specifically, and I worked in business previously. It's a little bit frustrating because when you are a high performing woman, you want to get up there, you want to be the best of your field. It's almost like, oh, I guess you're the money maker. Oh, who's staying at home with the kids? You can't focus on
Mm-hmm.
just the achievement of I am a successful lawyer without the other aspect of personal life coming in. Like you're either feeling like you're giving up something or the people around you are kind of like putting that onto you. And as
Yeah,
I mean, like I'm nowhere near close to starting a family, but it's like a
yeah,
consideration that I definitely have that my male counterparts do not at all.
for sure. For sure. And you know, it's super unfortunate. And I mean, I've learned over my years as a working mom that other people's priorities are not my priorities. And every
Mm-hmm.
woman's priorities are unique and different to her, and every man's priorities are unique and different to him. And so I think it comes back to that that idea of self-assurance. It's like a certainty and a self-trust. It's like, hey, I know exactly what my priorities are, and your priorities aren't my priorities, and I own my priorities for what they are, period. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, that comes into finding your validation within yourself. Anybody can say whatever they want, they can do whatever they want, they can think whatever they want, and it means nothing about me, my intentions, my priorities, or my values, because those are
And,
mine.
and honestly, what anybody else thinks of you is really none of your business. Like, why do you care what anybody else thinks of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and that's, I think, how we have to move forward. But I want to bring this in because um, someone brought this to my attention yesterday about the 10th anniversary report of women in the workplace. And it was in partnership with leanin.org. So they talk about the notable gains that women have made, but in general, in many ways, their experience is the same or worse than it was 10 years ago. Like, that's
Mm,
terrifying, right? The
Yeah.
fact that we think we are making all of these gains,
yeah.
but when they do the research behind it, I mean, that's crazy to me that it's similar to 10 years ago. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's really sad and that's really heartbreaking. But also it like fires me up. It like lights a fire under
Yeah.
my
yeah,
butt, where it's not like,
yeah.
oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to accept that and roll over and die. And that's one of the reasons why I did create this mother-daughter movement too, is so that I can be the change that I want to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't buy into the mean girl comparison, judgmental, critical of each other. I don't subscribe to that. I don't buy into that. And so what am I doing to support the next generation, not even knowing what like mean girl mentality is, right? Or I just learned about like this queen bee mentality. I don't know. Somebody told me about that. And I was like, I don't even know that. Like, it's just not even on my radar because I unsubscribe. I just unsubscribe
Yeah.
to it. And we do this exercise in these retreats that we do with moms and their daughters. It's called Angel Whispers. And we go through a quick little meditation where each girl and each mom goes back in time to the time when they felt the most confident, the most happy, the most self-assured. And they meet that little person, that little girl, and that little girl gives them a little bit of their wisdom. Like, what wisdom does that person have, that little girl have to give you? And then everybody has it, right? Personally for themselves. And then everybody stands in a circle. So you've got moms and daughters. We all stand in a circle. And each little girl stands in the middle of the circle. And we have the lights down, like nice music playing. And each woman, so each mother and each young girl, goes up to this girl standing in the middle and whispers in her ear whatever that lesson or that learning or that piece of wisdom was that their younger self gave to them.
Mm,
And I'll share with you what mine always is. So I would walk up and I would whisper in the ear, "You are enough just the way you are."
mm.
And so each woman and each girl shares their learning and their lesson. And I literally stand there and I stand back every time we do this. And I feel like I'm watching a generation change right before my eyes because it's this community of women pouring into my daughter and then other women pouring into their daughter, right? And then young girls supporting and pouring lessons and learnings and light and goodness and hope and lighting people's candles, right? And so they just get to have this experience of this is the type of world and the type of woman, female community that we can build. And I think we need to build. We absolutely need to build
Mm-hmm.
it because I believe that there is nothing that a group of powerful women cannot accomplish. And I think that that is why women are under attack. Because if we can keep, I mean, obviously I'm a God-fearing woman. Like if the devil can keep women separated and apart from each other and pitted against each other, then we've lost a lot of our power and a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
influence, right? And so that's what I'm actively fighting against.
Do you feel like these retreats are more empowering for the moms or the daughters or both equally?
That's a great question. My hope is equally, and I would probably say equally.
Mm. Yeah, it's such a cool idea.
Hmm.
So tell me a bit more about your family. So you have how many children?
Yeah. Yeah, I have three. I have three
Okay.
kids. They are 12. So Quinn is 12. I have a boy. His name's Tristan, and he is 10. And then I have a little 6-year-old daughter named Felicity.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and they're
There is
high
some.
energy. They are like high energy. And I have nobody to blame but myself. Sometimes my husband and I are like, "What is this chaos that's going on in our house right now?" And I'm like, Our kids are just little mirrors of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little mirrors
Yeah.
of us." And I literally, it is no joke. Yesterday because my daughter said something to me, and I looked at my husband and I'm like, "That tonality is exactly me." Like now I know, like now I know how I come across sometimes, and like I need to be aware of it because that's not okay. But she gets it from me. So I'm like, "Ugh, all I have to do is work on myself, you know?
Yeah.
If anything, yeah, I'm sure you guys have talked about that too. If anything ever triggers you in life, it's typically because you're doing it yourself. So if
Oh,
somebody else's
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
behavior triggers you, it's because either you're doing it or somewhere else in your life it's happening. So if you go
Mm-hmm.
fix it in your life, it doesn't bug you anymore. It doesn't trigger you. It's kind of like it just like rolls off your shoulder. It's like not
That's
even on
what
your radar anymore.
I have so many people say. I don't understand how you can handle the chaos of six children. And I'm like, doesn't bother me at all. Like, I actually find it really, I don't want to say relaxing, but some of my best working moments, whether I'm writing or, you know, I don't know, working on something for the podcast, is when it's chaotic because that's where I get
Wow.
my energy from.
Mm, isn't that interesting? That is so interesting to me because my friend Mary has 6 kids and I'm like, I don't know, Mary. Like, I don't know. But again, every family is different. So again, I
Right.
can't compare my situation to your situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the best situation for you and you've adapted to it and
Right.
you're adept to it. Like God's given you certain gifts so that you could have 6 kids and the 6 exact kids that you have, right?
Right.
And God gave me 3 kids that probably act like 6 kids, like and I'm equipped to handle them. And I believe that and I hold on to that so deeply that I feel like our children, and maybe Simone, you can speak to this and validate it or not. I believe that God handpicks our children to be our greatest refiner's fire. Like he picks those children and we like he picks them for us because they're our greatest teachers. I've learned the most through my children about myself, and I've
Mm.
grown and developed myself the most because of my children, because I feel like they are my greatest teachers. If I let them be, like if I'm, put my ego aside and let them be my greatest teachers, they can be and have been.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that I've learned more from my kids than anything else, and they are so different. Again, we adopted our youngest three children, and they are the exact children that I was meant to have. And I learn something new every day. Doesn't matter how many kids. I thought what after we had three kids and then we adopted our son Noah that I knew everything about being a mom. Right? I had no clue what I was doing. Like I was like, oh, fail day one. Oh, fail day two. Okay, how do we keep going here? And you just keep going until you take all those lessons in and see what works because every child is different and every parent is different. And don't be hard on yourself, right? Like that's the thing. It's just things happen, you move forward and you keep going.
Yeah. One of the best, I completely agree with you. One of the best things that I heard too is that um, the family dynamic, it's almost like with each new kid, there's sort of like a death of the family and a rebirth of the family.
Mm.
Because with each child, it changes the dynamic. And you're also, the other thing I heard too is that you're not the same mom to your first kid that you were to your sixth kid.
Oh, for sure
And so
not.
sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, how do I have 3 kids that ended up this way and 3 kids that ended up this way? Because they were all raised in the same home with the same parents. Not true.
Right.
Not true. Because birth order matters. and you were a completely different person developmentally, experientially, right?
For
And
sure.
with each child, it's their child experiences of you is completely different for every single one. And I think that that's cool because I think it also, like, I don't know, I think it gives you a lot of grace in that, where you're just like,
Hmm.
hey, everybody's doing the best they can with the resources that they have at the time. And I think it's part of life for us to not be perfect and to not get things right and to get really good at repair, because repair is where the magic happens, you know? We take ownership and we say, hey, I messed up. I did that wrong. I thought I was doing the right thing, but obviously I can see I didn't. I'm really sorry. I love you, you know? And I think that's a process that,
Yeah.
every parent and child have to go through dozens and
And it's,
dozens and
yeah.
dozens of
And
times.
it's what you, what you learn from it. I mean, trust me, I do. I make mistakes every day, some bigger, some smaller, but I do think, I mean, the kids are used to it now. They're like, oh yeah, okay. But I think that it is important for our kids to see that, right? If they
Yeah.
only see that, oh, well, everything has to be just right all the time, then what are they learning from that? They're learning that there's no growth. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
I see it.
And there's no struggle in life. And so then the first sign of struggle that they have, they're like, did I do something wrong?
Hmm.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then that's when, like, anxiety can take over, and there's no coping skills. Like, kids develop and learn coping skills through watching their parents' coping skills
I
and their
really
own
like
self-regulation.
Yeah, I really like the idea of that with each child. It's like the death of a family and the birth of a family, because I think about that. Like for Olivia, if we didn't adopt children, she would have been the youngest child. And what do you call yourself? A forced middle, something like that?
Upper middle child.
A forced upper middle child. So,
Yep. Yep.
it is different, and it's way different than what I did with my first child, and how I raised them is completely different because our situation is different. And I'm not as neurotic about things.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, wait, they're going to survive. They're not so breakable, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
funny how that goes.
Exactly. I agree.
Liv, what do you got?
For what?
Question. You got to ask her a question.
Oh.
What's the
You
best
scared?
advice? That's
Oh, I'm
you.
sorry. I was like, what are you talking about?
I
I
know.
didn't know
I
if we
was
were at
like,
that
give
time.
you no.
Okay. What is the best advice a woman in your life has ever given you?
Because I always say I
Mm.
give her the best advice every single day of my life, but most of the time it's, yeah.
That is such a good question. And what's ironic about this is I ask this same question to my podcast guests, and I've never answered it for myself. So,
Oh, that's so funny.
okay, what is it? What's the best piece of advice that any woman has ever given to me? Oh, the one that comes to mind off the top of my head, my volleyball coach. So I played volleyball all through my growing up years and into college. And she said to me, stay, and she modeled this, stay in the question,
Mm,
stay in the question, which to me means stay curious. And when you have an experience as a mother or in business or whatever it is, you always debrief afterwards. And that way you can always make things better, right? So you always debrief. You're like, okay, how could I do that better? So I'm staying in the question, how could I do that better?
Mhm.
How, what made that situation hard, or what made that situation great? So you just always staying in this place of curiosity, because I think that's where growth comes from, is realizing you don't know everything. You're not
mm,
always right. So stay in
100%.
in the question. And I do that with my kids too. Like, instead of, if they bring something up, instead of answering and shutting them down, they'll answer and I'll say, tell me more.
Mm,
Like,
it's really good.
how, just tell me more. And that, having it be that open-ended question instead of a yes or no question, keeps the conversation going. And it also shows that I care about what's to come. And then it lets them guide it, instead of me trying to force a conversation, they can sort of take it where their heart needs them to take it instead of just in the confines of my question.
My professor has a similar mindset to that, and it's been both a very frustrating thing to watch other people experience, but also like really rewarding for my academic sense, is that she never wants the right answer. She wants you to explain why you think that, and people they didn't get it right away, and they still don't get it because it's challenging if you've never had to be okay, so why though?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an important skill that I think kids should be taught more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Because it can feel really uncomfortable when you're
Mm-hmm.
a black or white, right or wrong, yes or no. It brings it back a little bit more to the motivations behind it, the morality of the reason why you're choosing that, right? And a lot of times we don't sit in that because it is just right and wrong. And
Yeah.
because most of the time people are they're just regurgitating information that they've been told,
Yeah.
and people are living in people pleasing. So usually they
Mm.
give you the answer that they think you want,
I
or
always
the
said
other
with the
way around,
kids,
that you think that they think,
they want. Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, that they want. We
Yeah. Yeah.
answer in the way that we think they want.
When the kids were little, the worst question, and I learned this very quickly and I stopped asking it. How was your day? Fine. Like, end of discussion. Okay, no. I mean, tell me okay, how was math today? What did you do in math today? Right? And they're
Yep.
like, oh, there's too many questions.
Yes.
But yeah, I think you always need to be questioning. You always need to be learning. Never stop learning. I think it's so important that
Yes.
we understand that we don't have all the answers and that we can learn something from everyone we meet, and that it's important to keep that open mind.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, now Liv, tell us your
Okay.
calendar.
Live on purpose. What would it look like for you to actually live with purpose? Who would you be? What would you be doing?
See, that one aligned perfectly with this, right?
That's
Live
awesome.
on purpose. Isn't it funny? Sometimes they really just do align. But yeah,
Mhm.
who would you be? What do you want? That's the question I always love to ask. What do you want?
I love that. And live on purpose. And the take that we take on in woman lessons, it fits so perfectly, is I say live in your purpose.
Mm,
Mm.
So if you don't know, and it's live in your purpose and live in your potential. If we haven't even thought about who we want to become, we don't even know what we're working towards.
mm-hmm.
So living on purpose is great, but living in it, like having a clear picture of what that person looks like and then living like that person would live right now, is going to get you
Mm-hmm.
to become that.
I love that. So Traci, thank you so much for being here today. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes. So everybody can find me at tracipeterson.com. Traci's with an I, Peterson's with an O-N. And we actually, since we talked quite a bit about, divine gifts, we have a divine gift guide. It's a free divine gift guide that you can do on your own if you're a woman, or if you want to go on there and print it off for your daughter or share it with your daughter. It's a way that she can discover her divine gift and own it and not compare it to anybody else's.
And we'll include all of that in our show notes.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks again for being here with us. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Her Unshakable Confidence. Always remember, you are unshakable.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.